There were more millionaires made after the Great Depression than at any other time in history. So get yourself ready, get your investments ready, and get ready to come out punching when that inevitable recession happens.
We've got other subjects to jump onto.
Well, speaking of rooms, is there an elephant in the room? I wanted to bring this up.
You've been talking to my mum again.
One of the biggest words. One of the biggest words on search engines at the moment is the word recession.
Yes.
And what my question is the elephant in the room as far as, is it the elephant in the room as far as economics is concerned? Now, we have, you're going to love this one again. Okay. You're going to love this one again. The inverted yield curve.
Oh, wow.
You would love the inverted yield curve. Shaquille loves the inverted yield curve. It's an indicator that basically is looking at bond prices and the face value, and the ones that are further out in time should be positive, but when they aren't, when they're less than the ones that are closer in time, it gets an inverted yield curve, which is often an indicator.
I'm sure our audience absolutely are riveted at this. This is great.
Derek, there's $1 million question here. Is the inverted yield curve in yet?
Is the inverted yield curve? Well, it seems that the inverted yield curve is actually occurring. And so what I want to know is, are we having the recession that we don't want to admit to? Is that going on in US economy in particular? These are the sort of things we've got to look at. Now, I know that recession is defined by, I know the recession is defined by 2 economic quarters back to back, right? But of course, the Democratic administration wants to redefine recession. So, yeah, is it the elephant in the room? Shaq, I'm going to throw this one out.
Yeah, well, I'll go first. Look, here's a really big thing, and I'll just quickly explain what an inverted yield curve is. If you can imagine that you lend your money to the government generally for only 2 years, you would expect the interest rate that you would receive to be lower than if you agreed to lend it to them for 25 years. So if you plot that on a graph, the difference between the interest rate on 2 years and 5 years versus 25 years should be what they call upward sloping, which means that it's a higher interest rate the longer that you tie your money up. If interest rates are higher for a short term, which means that you get paid a higher interest rate for 2 years than you would if you locked your money up for 25 years, that's called an inverted curve. This is normally an indicator of a recession, and I'm not aware of any time that I can think of that I've ever studied in history. Thank you for that, Damien. I can't think of any time in history where we actually had 25 or 26 different currencies with inverted yield curves. So while I don't want to make light of what happened in the US, where they said, we're just going to redefine this. They should have redefined it. Yes, it did fit the criteria for recession. I understand why they did that, because there are some other economic factors in hand at the time. They shouldn't have, though. They should have just said it's a recession, but it's not the same as the others. However, recessions actually tend to occur when the yield curve comes back to normal. Now, it has actually started coming back a little bit, and the conspiracy tinfoil hat-wearing person that I am says, I reckon they'll hold this until it's clear that Donald Trump's going to win. And as soon as Donald Trump's going to win, the yield curve will snap back in, and all of a sudden the money will just rush out of the market and will cause a recession. I will also just say, repeating what I said before, learn the system, learn how to best take advantage of it and who's going to benefit the most. There were more millionaires made after the Great Depression than at any other time in history. So get yourself ready, get your investments ready, and get ready to come out punching when that inevitable recession happens. Look, we had Paul Keating, I think Damien said, or one of them, Brandon said, the recession that we had to have from Paul Keating and Bob Hawke. Well, look, they're going to do what they're going to do regardless. And the one person that they don't give a flying shit about is you. So just have a look. If you think it's heading towards a recession, structure your investments to take advantage of that. Go for it. But yeah, I think I think the world's heading for a major recession.
Thank you, Shaq, for clarifying that in terms of yield curves. I think I got face value and that. But what I want to say is don't believe the headlines the mainstream media is showing you about recessions, because it sounds like doom and gloom. There's such opportunity in these situations, right? As Shaq's highlighted, most millionaires, billionaires are made in these times. And there's also a great wealth transfer occurring right now, okay, sure, that people have got to be aware of. One of those is in the whole fact that the baby boomers, they're going to be 65 by 2030 or whatever it is. They're not going to want to...
Baby boomers?
Yeah, baby boomers
are like 9.
I'm sorry. Those who are running businesses are retiring, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And a lot of the kids don't necessarily want to take over those businesses.
Okay.
Right. So there's going to be a lot of businesses, I think, on the market for sale. If you're not wanting to start one from scratch,
okay,
that's for entrepreneurs to have a look at in that space. So that's an interesting space that's going on. But this is what we've got to realize, is that a lot of that hoarded wealth is actually being released at this time and is about to be released. And so you've got to go, how am I set up to receive it?
Okay.
Can I just make one more comment on the end of that? Sorry. Can I just make one more comment?
Sure.
One of the major complaints around the Western world, pretty much since COVID, has been the cost of living. All right. Now, the United States has taken some credit for having a much lower rate of inflation than its peer group, which is correct at the moment. They've had higher rates, but it's correct at the moment. They also ran a more significant deficit. Without going off the subject, whether or not you should have a bigger deficit or not, that'll be something that economists can debate and study for decades to come. But you just have to look at what they said. All of the reserve banks, central banks in the Western world all said, what we're going to do is we're going to crush demand. Because they can't increase supply, so they said they'll crush demand, which meant that they had to do a few things. One, raise interest rates in order to suck all the money out of people that are paying mortgages. Okay? Two, and that also reduces inflation. Two, drive up the unemployment rate. Three, drive up the rates of mass immigration. Those are all the things that are currently happening. Now, what do those things normally result in? They normally result in a recession. But what's the thing that happens at the end of a recession or during a recession? Cost of living goes down, right? Cost of living goes down. So if you wanted to buy a house in 2008 in the United States, it was really cheap to do it. Right, and people actually don't realize there was only the 30% unemployment rate then, right? So, sorry, I'll phrase that. Sorry, 30% of homes is what was lost. It was only like an 8% unemployment rate or something. So, the thing is that when we're talking about recessions, I think it's going to happen because they've told us it's going to happen, and it is, technically speaking, exactly what the people asked for. The government is, for once, going to give you exactly what you asked for. And like I've always said, government will give you what you want in the way that's going to hurt you the most every single time. That's why you shouldn't ask them for anything.
Yes. Oh, dear. And on that bombshell, I think we should end the show, to be honest with you. That is an absolute classic. Thank you, gentlemen, for
that bombshell, surely. You're going to say something.
We can. All right, this has been The Greater Wealth here on Edge Radio Australia. We'll see you next week. And, of course, the replay on Sunday.